It's April 14th, 2021.
It's April 11th, 2025.
My name is Brett Christensen.
My name is Bree Christensen.
And 3 days ago,
And 4 years ago,
I came out to myself
as trans.
This is really hard.
This gets easier every day.
The past 3 days have been horrible.
The past 4 years have made me want to live again.
I don't know what happened.
You don't need to.
It underlines another question that I have about whether or not this is what I am.
Yeah, honey, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but you're a girl.
Maybe it's just in my head.
Nope.
Maybe I'm just sexually repressed.
No.
Maybe I'm overthinking and I'm bored.
No, honey. That is what overthinking looks like. Refusing to make a decision because you've gotten used to indecision. You don't do that anymore.
Because for the longest time, I didn't think I had gender dysphoria.
Baby girl, look at you. You are gender dysphoria, but that's okay. You were so used to it, you just felt normal. How were you supposed to recognize how bad you felt until you knew how good you could feel?
And my story didn't fit typical gender dysphoria stories or trans stories.
Yeah, it was really, really hard to find connections with the trans people you were reading about and the ones that you were seeing in the media. I know. And that is absolutely not your fault. But that's why you put so much effort into being visible for your community now. You don't want other people to hurt like you were hurting. You're going to be a really positive role model for a lot of people.
I haven't been physically sick or vehemently opposed to my male body.
You went to bed every night praying to wake up as a girl. You wished on every birthday cake, every 11/11, every shooting star. You knew in your heart for so long that you were not comfortable being a boy. What you're trying to say is you don't think you're trans enough and you need to knock it off right now. There is no such thing as trans enough.
Some people talked about how they felt like they were just living a different life, like they were muted. I don't know, I never felt.
Girl, you don't even know how boring and miserable you are right now, or how different your life is about to be. This sad boy thing is not you. This is you, sunshine.
I got really good at playing the character of my male persona, is kind of how I've been thinking about it lately.
No, you were acting, and you can't keep acting your way through life. You had resigned yourself to begrudging acceptance, and all you were doing was what society had convinced you being a man was, hiding your real feelings. And I hate to break it to you, but you weren't really all that great a guy.
You know, I've had to ask myself a lot the past 3 days what I want, and it's been very hard.
And you know what? That never stops. You're always going to be asking yourself what you want every day because you're going to be constantly trying new things and exploring who you are. This is just the first time you've ever been brave enough to admit what you want.
For the longest time, I just assumed that this was just a kink.
Oh, goodness.
It was just a fetish.
No.
I'm really embarrassed.
Stop being embarrassed. This is the realest and bravest you've ever been. And I'm so proud of you. I literally owe my existence to you. I'm here because of you.
I'm just at this point where I feel like I've been lying.
No, you weren't lying. You just didn't understand. You didn't have the language to understand.
It's really hard to see myself on camera right now.
Not anymore.
I've never appreciated my voice.
Not anymore.
It's clunky and it's monotone.
I don't miss it, but that's crazy. You have no reason to be insecure. Honestly, it only makes this more impressive.
And even though I don't have to listen to myself speak yet, that time is coming, and I'm dreading it.
Not anymore.
I don't know, I felt like I had to kind of provide myself, my future self, and anybody else who might be going through this documentation.
And I, along with thousands of people, are so glad you did, honey. You were so opposed to making any record of yourself for so long that this is nearly all I have left of you. And the further away you get from me, the more I miss you. I can't put myself in your headspace anymore. This way, I get to see you and I get to remember you being brave.
A lot of people aren't going to have even remotely similar experiences to me.
No, and that's the way it should be. Don't let a seemingly common experience that you don't have stop you from living your own. There's no checklist.
Being trans takes a lot of courage, and I'm sorry for not recognizing that.
Courage that you have.
I just feel like I should do it.
You should.
What would transitioning look like? I don't even know.
This.
Am I happy about it?
Yes.
Am I enjoying it?
So much.
I hate that I can't be who I want to be because I'm not allowed to.
You can be, babe. You never needed permission. Just let yourself happen.
Good news, everyone! Tonight, The Sound of Silence, a manly milestone for Brazil, Libby's loss, and more. Good news starts right now. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to review an article from 2022 because the subject it discusses is more germane than ever. This is from Open Democracy, and it's called Anti-Trans Activists Are Using Mirror Propaganda. Here is how to spot it. And the main thrust of it is that people claiming to be silenced are being featured in national mainstream media platforms. We're seeing quite a bit of that even today, more so than ever, one dare say. So this article starts with the recent backlash against Graham Norton. For those of you who may have missed it, back in 2022, Graham Norton, Irish podcaster, had Joanne Rowling on his show to talk about one of her Cormorant Strike books or whatever. And he got a shit ton of backlash because people were saying he didn't understand why JK was so problematic and so on and so forth. And they were right. He didn't know much about her. But he stood by his conviction and the invitation, saying that engaging with people we don't agree with is important, which is true so far as it goes, but he forgot a very important qualifier. Engaging with people who are of good faith is important, because a bad faith engagement is never going to be productive. At best, you'll get no good from it, but more likely, you will be weaponized against your own side by leading you down rabbit trails or cherry picking quotes out of what you said to seem to misrepresent your position, any number of shenanigans. It is a bad idea unless the person is a reasonable good faith person. But I do digress. After that, Graham Norton was being interviewed by another publication, and they asked him about his views on trans people. And he quite reasonably said, I don't know much about that. If you're interested, why not ask some trans people? And for that, J.K. Rowling and her minions went after him to such a degree that he ended up having to delete his Twitter. He was literally silenced because he said something they don't agree with, while they complain about being silenced. And he did it for saying maybe the media should actually ask some trans people. What a crazy notion. The recent backlash against Graham Norton's entirely reasonable suggestion that the media talks to more trans people was more revealing than people think. He came dangerously close to exposing organized transphobia's core campaign strategy, something they don't want people talking about. In collaboration with mainstream media, its main strategy has been to liberally platform anti-trans narratives, hermetically exclude trans perspectives, and at the same time accuse trans people of silencing the transphobes. For example, a transphobic group holds a rally somewhere, maybe a couple of dozen transphobes in a draughty church hall. There's a protest outside. A journalist with a confected faux indignation then claims trans people are silencing them. Those claiming to be silenced are then featured in every national mainstream platform, something that caught the ire of Sarah Ahmed, an independent academic and former professor of race and cultural studies at Goldsmiths University of London. Quote, whenever people keep being given a platform to say they have no platform, or whenever people speak endlessly about being silenced, you not only have a performative contradiction, you are witnessing a mechanism of power. There is a name for this mechanism of power: mirror propaganda. Mirror propaganda means doing to your enemies what you are falsely accusing them of doing to you. You may be familiar with this from, the U.S. politics, for example. So many of our issues are plagued by this. So the media creates the myth that trans people are silencing anti-trans activists, while the reality is that every major national media outlet in the UK and the US, from The Guardian and The Times to The Mail and the BBC, they almost never include any trans voices. Of course, the media also ignores the fact that protests outside transphobic rallies also constitute free speech, usually of the most voiceless. Moreover, the systematic exclusion of trans voices from the media, combined with wall-to-wall anti-trans rhetoric, is many, many orders of magnitude greater than a half-empty church hall. Transphobic rallies often struggle to get attendance into double digits, but mainstream media reaches millions. Our exclusion from the media contrasts with a huge number of anti-trans articles every month, still true to this day, often 5 or 6 in the same newspaper on the same day. And if you doubt the veracity of that, there's a fellow named Lee Hurley who's on Blue Sky and writes a newsletter called The Trans Agenda, and you can find out exactly how many articles are published in every single one of the UK's main newspapers every day that deal with trans people. In fact, no means exists by which trans people can silence anyone. There are no trans media editors, media CEOs, or university vice chancellors, and precious few trans politicians. There have never been any trans commissioners in the Equalities and Human Rights Commission. Yet, the media pretends trans people are able to silence anti-trans activists at any time. This means that for anti-trans activists, it has become almost a duty to be faux silenced. In their hired venues, joint rallies with the far right, online AstroTurf actions, even in unsuspecting academic publications, they theatrically perform silencing whenever they can to provide material for mirror propaganda. When you see anyone claiming trans people are silencing them, it's part of a mirror propaganda operation. For mirror propaganda to work, you need complete control over mainstream media. It is a hardcore military-grade propaganda technique now being deployed by some of the most powerful people in the country against one of the smallest minorities. In a situation where mainstream media is entirely one-sided, its writers can no longer be considered journalists, but propagandists. Those who platform them while excluding those they target are not editors, they are censors. The invention of mirror propaganda has been attributed to Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels, and so far the earliest identified deployments of it are by Goebbels and Himmler in 1940s Germany, targeting Jewish people. More recently, Alison Deforgue and Jean-Pierre Chrétien identified mirror propaganda as a significant factor in the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, when hundreds of thousands of Tutsi men, women, and children were killed. Susan Benesch, director of the Dangerous Speech Project at Harvard University, has also identified mirror propaganda as one of the main techniques for inciting genocide. However, mirror propaganda is also deployed in other ways against trans people, such as when anti-trans activists claim, without evidence, that trans people are a danger to cis women. On the contrary, the real danger to cis women comes from the politics of the far right, particularly homophobic and anti-abortion fundamentalists that gender-critical transphobes often collaborate with and are funded by to the tune of millions of dollars. In addition to safe and legal abortions, these extremist groups oppose contraception, equal marriage, equal adoption, IVF, and Gillick competence, the legal principle that young people have the ability to give consent to their own medical treatment, among many other things. Through the wedge issue of transphobia, self-identified gender-critical feminists have opened the door to the far right's homophobia and misogyny. After investing all this money, are they really going to stop at just harming trans people? So, who is deploying mirror propaganda? Global Action for Trans Equality recently produced an analysis of organized transphobia in Britain. What's most striking is how the connection between well-funded right-wing evangelical organizations, gender-critical groups, and mainstream media are so numerous that they appear almost indistinguishable from each other. Yet their modus operandi is where these groups most obviously align. Mirror propaganda is an extreme right-wing political strategy now being deployed by nice middle-class transphobes and respectable establishment journalists normalizing the exclusion of trans people's voices. Transphobes from their media bully pulpits with contrived self-righteous fervor routinely claim we are silencing them, while they are silencing us. This tells you all you need to know about the complete absence of integrity and sincerity in those who oppose trans and non-binary people's human rights. While Brazil had the highest per capita rate of trans deaths in the world last year, the trans community continues to show determination to change the culture. We've reported over the past year about a record number of trans candidates running for office, protests, and other events such as beauty queens expanding representation into the public awareness. Now it's time for a beauty king. Meet Bernardo Rebelo, the first trans man to compete in the Mr. Brazil pageant, part of the Mr. Universe organization. This stunning king from Rio de Janeiro is 29 years old, works as a personal trainer with a degree in physical education, and also takes jobs from 2 modeling agencies. Base MGT in Sao Paulo, and 40 grouse models in Rio. He also understands the significance of his presence in this particular national competition. He told Splash, a Brazilian publication, quote, "It's a mix of happiness and responsibility because I know how important this is, not only for the LGBTQ plus community, but for society as a whole." He's told other outlets that winning isn't nearly as important as simply getting on the stage. First of all, there's just being trans. Social difficulties notwithstanding, transition itself is difficult for many to access, with several regions offering little or no support or not even having the facilities available. Bernardo is, like many of us, entirely self-pay for healthcare and couldn't even begin HRT until he was 23, once he had achieved financial independence. Then there is the matter of participating in the pageant itself. Applying to be a competitor is expensive, time-consuming, and there are never guarantees. Even once accepted, he had to fund his own travel, a specialty wardrobe for multiple contests and events, and lodging as well as food during the competition, among other expenses. Just by being there, he's demonstrating that it is possible to overcome several layers of barriers, that trans people can succeed. Not bad for a 7-year-old, as he describes himself, referring to the time since he began his transition. He credits 2 things for his success in transition and in life generally: his pre-transition self and his family. His mother, Vivian, told Splash, quote, "Seeing a happy and fulfilled son is priceless. We're incredibly proud. His authenticity and courage are symbols of resistance and inspiration." His stepfather was a little reluctant, having said he was afraid of what might happen to Bernardo, until his sister, Bernardo's aunt, told him, quote, "What are you afraid of? He won't stop being who he is. All the education you gave him will always be with him. Today, he just needs to adopt the identity he's always been." Bernardo also had kind words for his past self, saying that without her laying the groundwork and taking the initiative to get on this road, he would be nothing at all. Bernardo is engaged to a speech therapist, and the couple hope to have children in the next few years. But not to worry, you can still follow along on his adventures in modeling and muscles on his Instagram. Life Bernardo Rebelo. A few weeks ago, we reported on the Nancy Mace wannabe from Maine, State Representative Laurel Libby, who posted pictures of a child on her social media with the intent of brigading harassment from the public. On a child, with her name, and the school she attends. Needless to say, any elected official participating in such a disgraceful act against any constituent would be deserving of condemnation. To target a child in that way isn't just deplorable, it's potentially criminal. The state's House censured Representative Libby for her gross action, but of course, unable to speak to the manager, she filed a lawsuit. This week, a federal court has ruled against the Republican lawbreaker. House Speaker Ryan Fecteau accused Libby of violating the state's legislative ethics code with her post, and the Maine House of Representatives censured her in February. Libby filed a federal lawsuit against Fecteau in March, arguing the censure violated her right to free speech. U.S. District Court Judge Melissa DuBose, who holds the distinction of being the first woman of color and first LGBT judge on the federal bench, ruled against Libby's request for a preliminary injunction last Friday. Interestingly, Judge DuBose, who is from the District of Rhode Island, had to fill in on the case because all of the federal judges for the District of Maine recused themselves from this nonsense. Libby said in a statement about her suit, which is in contention for the least self-aware press release this year, from Maine anyway, quote, "The courts must stand up to this abuse of power, which contradicts the very rationale for representative democracy." Yes, tell us more about abuse of power, Representative. Maybe posting pictures of the judges' sons and where your band of bigots can find them will help your case. It should be noted, both the State Code of Ethics and the Procedure for Censure are publicly available information out there for anyone who can read to access. No part of the state's handling of the matter has deviated from those standards. If anything, the state house took the most lenient action available to them without ignoring the matter entirely. Libby stated in her lawsuit that the censure stripped her right to speak and vote on the House floor and said Friday it is tantamount to disenfranchising thousands of Maine residents. She clearly has as firm a grasp on her own state's parliamentary procedures as she does on the Code of Ethics, because that's not how any of that works. Judge DuBose pointed out that Libby is not rendered unable to represent her constituents in any way. Quote, "Libby can still fully participate on committees to which she is assigned, including voting, debating, and testifying at public hearings, sponsor and co-sponsor bills and resolutions, lobby other members for support or opposition to proposed legislation, participate in legislative caucus meetings, testify at public hearings about any pending legislation, be present on the House floor during debates and votes, engage in procedural actions on the House floor, such as making a motion to amend or postpone a bill or raise an objection thereto, use all legislative staff and offices without any restrictions, and be fully compensated, including travel-related expenses and meal allowances." Hashtag canceled indeed. It should also be noted that the terms of the censure require Libby only remove the post that put a child in danger and apologize for her reprehensible and irrational action. The choice to stomp her foot like a spoiled toddler and refuse to say she is sorry is her own doing. Judge DuBose also stated that all of this is a Maine state internal matter and federal court is not actually the appropriate venue. But if Representative Libby really wants to make a trial out of this, she is willing to oblige. If you enjoy content like this, be sure to subscribe. Transpositions Weekly is the first and only weekly trans news show in the universe, and we need your support to keep this show going. Contribute at patreon.com/thetranspositions. Spread the word all over social media to let people know we're here. And tell us what stories matter to you by joining the community on Discord. Discord, of course, is where the memes live, and our meme of the week was posted by The Sinister Porpoise. And if you think prejudiced authoritarian efforts to control women's bodies is, in fact, harmful to women, join us. Also, if you have good news concerning trans people you'd like to see reported on, you can tell us about that in the Discord as well. For the transpositions, I've been Ember Belrad.